Welcome. We'll get started shortly. Before we begin, here's how to earn continuing professional education credit for attending this session. There are no polling questions or attendance checks. Instead, you will demonstrate your knowledge by taking a brief multiple-choice quiz using the Earmark app. Visit earmark.app in your web browser. You can also download the mobile app by scanning the QR code on the screen. Log in, or if you're new, create your free account. Be sure to use a valid email address because that's where we'll send your course completion certificates. From the home screen, scroll down to find the course. You can also tap the magnifying glass icon to search for the course. Tap on the course artwork, then the Enroll button. On the Course tab, you'll find the recording and quiz questions. Complete the quiz to earn your CPE certificate. It takes us a few days to create the course on the app, so if you are attending this session live, please wait a few days. We'll email you a link to the course when it is ready. If you have questions or need help, email us at support@earmarkcpe.com. And now, on to the event. Buckle up, accountants. It's time for another Earmark Expo, where we're taking the latest accounting tech for a test drive. Here's how it works. We're going to floor it with a live demo of a game-changing app. David and I are in the driver's seat, putting this app through its paces and asking the tough questions every accountant wants to know the answers to. And guess what? You're riding along with us. We want you, our live audience, to help us navigate. Ask your own questions in the chat, and we will highlight them for Keith to answer. This is your chance to see cutting-edge accounting tech in action, get your questions answered in real time, and gain insights that could transform your practice. So take a seat, and let's roll with today's Earmark Expo.
So Blake, going back to my olden days at the QuickBooks App Store, I always loved talking to accountants or accounting firms that are building their own apps. It's always excited me, like they're eating the dog food, they're suffering the problem, and they figure out how to solve it. And there's a lot of very successful apps in our space because of that. So today we have Keith from Bookkeeping Express. He's an outsourced CAS firm that specializes in franchises. And they built an in-house app client portal that they've been using internally and now are ready to make it external for other accountants to use inside their firms. So we get to see this story that I love, right? We get to see that today.
Awesome. Welcome, Keith. I'm really excited to see what you've built.
Thank you, Blake and David. It's great.
So we're going to dig into that. But like first, I guess, the question I always like to ask is, why did you go to all the trouble of building tech? It's a lot of work. It's not easy.
No.
Why not just use something else off the shelf?
Yeah, it's a great question. And you're right. It is a lot of work. But, when we started Bookkeeping Express, our hypothesis was that we wanted to build a really big scale bookkeeping business. And we're talking, hundreds of thousands of clients. We believed in the industry. Our hypothesis was that somewhere down the road, right, it could be another 5 years, could be another 10, that there will be there'll be about, 3 to 5 firms that actually all have those 100,000 small business clients. And the scale like that, we came to the conclusion that, one, you obviously needed a completely robust delivery system that puts you in control to manage all those moving parts to deliver, the 10,000, 100,000 clients. But we also recognized that to get that many clients, we had to meet the clients at a price point that they, could afford. There's not, if you look at the addressable market in the small business world, there's not a lot that, can afford $1,000 a month, $2,000 a month to get to 100,000 clients, at scale, right? So we really focused in and made the decision to focus in on efficiency and in scale. The efficiency to bring our price points down so we can meet them at a good place, and scale to be able to manage all that and so forth and so on, right? And just to give you a tidbit on the price points, in our go-to-marketplace in the franchise world, the average revenue is $400,000 a month, or a year. And we, live by the golden 1% rule, right? Our bookkeeping services cannot be more than 1% of the revenues. Otherwise, the clients start feeling an awful lot of pain. So we're talking about, getting down to a pretty low level, price point for the clients. That's what, $4,000 a month or a year, $3,300 a month type of scenario. So we came to a realization for us to really meet our hypothesis when we started Bookkeeping Express at scale. We needed that efficiency, and we needed that really good price point and so forth. Now, there was one other point, guys, which was at that level of client base we were looking for, we needed to build in simplicity. We needed everything to be for the client to be able to do something for 15 minutes a week, and that's about it. Because they have so much going on in their business. I mean, you guys feel that every day. We feel it every day. What's going on in the business world, where you're the CEO, the CFO, and so forth. So we wanted to get simplicity built in place. And also on the operational side of things, we needed to get that built in, because we needed, 50, 100 senior accountants working, and we wanted to be similar and, and make it real efficient for them and simple for them to know what they do as we're onboarding more people and so forth and so on. So, that was it. We knew we had to get to scale. We knew we had to get to efficiency at a great price point. We knew we needed to get to simplicity and so forth. So what did we build? We built an application called Insight. It has three aspects to it. The first aspect is a client portal, if you may, where everything that the client needs to do to interact to get books done are inside that client portal, and we'll be able to demonstrate that. And we built an operational side where our team of bookkeepers, senior accountants, people go chasing clients, are working inside of it to get the books delivered on a daily basis. And each side was built with the idea of efficiency and scale, basically.
So just to make sure, you're on this march for 100,000 clients. You're trying to build a firm that services 100,000 clients. Where are you at on this march? Do you have 50,000 now? 10,000?
We're at 3,000. We're just about ready to hit the 4,000 level, right?
So significant. I mean, that's a lot of clients to manage. I mean, you're getting decent size. Perfect.
And are we disappointed in the level of how much we've actually been able to get? Yeah, a little bit. It's taking a lot longer than we thought it would, but we believe the hypothesis is still there that the scalability will come into play, basically.
All right, well, let's take a look. I'll put your screen up on our screen. Here we go.
I'm Keith, I'm the CEO, and we're going to be talking about and demonstrating a system we call Insight. Insight was built on working for Bookkeeping Express, and we'll talk about Bookkeeping Express. And then we have the new offering that we work with CPAs on called My Accounting, and we'll be able to get into the details of all that. So hold on one second. There we go. So Bookkeeping Express is fundamentally just straight bookkeeping for small businesses. It is really a franchise focus. We're about 80% franchises and 20% independents. The independents kind of sneak in there, even though we're not marketing to them or any of that type of stuff. We got 3,000 clients and served, and we're just about ready to hit that 4 mark actually in the next month or two, basically. And it's a pretty simple perspective of what we deliver. We deliver income statements, balance sheets, transaction reports. And for our franchise clients, we actually deliver some analytics, particularly franchisors, so they can compare how one franchisee is doing against another franchisee and what they can tell the franchisee to focus in on and so forth. And this picture here is the client portal, right? This is the client side of things. And it is what I believe got us to be able to get to the scale that we're playing in today, right? It's because it shows so well to the clients. And it, I think built BKE, right? At the end of the day. It provides the client with status, where they stand, what's going on. It provides them all kinds of things that are blocking us, if that makes any sense. Gives them their ability to have the reporting, and it has all kinds of interactions. And we'll talk about the interactions a whole bunch more, right? But whether it's communication, uploading documents, uploading credentials, and so forth and so on, all of this is there. So fundamentally, everything a client needs to do to get their books out the door or review their books or grab the numbers or whatever it might be is sitting in this portal. And you can kind of feel the simplicity of it in how it's in your face and so forth. And we'll demo all that.
Great.
And then you have, the operational portal, which is really the things that people from the accounting side are really looking at, because we have this great capability to deliver. Right, and work stuff. And so My Accounting is really being driven. You get the client portal, but you get all of this operational stuff that we built, for the scale. And now, people with 50 clients or 100 clients are being able to utilize that scale right at the end of the day. So it is, a back office bookkeeping for businesses. Can get the application itself, or you can get the people aspect of it. Just beginning, we're actually at 7 firms now, right? But it is everything that our operational team needs to do to be able to get the work out the door on a constant grind basis every month, right? It's got workflow, it's got the interaction with the clients, it's got, all the admin, staffing, time tracking if you want to do it, all that kind of good stuff. And while the client side and the operational side are independent, they are absolutely intertwined, right? I mean, the reports don't show up on the client side without the operational side delivering the reports and all that kind of good stuff. And at the end of the day, between those two applications, we've reduced from our cost 8 years ago by 4x, basically. We're down 4x.
The cost to do the
Cost to
monthly
do the work,
close.
yeah. And we absolutely have met the requirements on the client side for, they're down to basically, I get my reports, I review my reports, and I move on, right? And or answer any questions, and they can get it done in 15 minutes a week or an hour a month, whatever it might be. So we've actually met those requirements that we got. Go ahead, Blake. Did you have a question? I'm sorry, did I cut you off?
No.
Yeah.
Please continue.
Yeah. So yeah, we feel that there's always ways to reduce the cost structure a little bit, get more efficient, but we've met our requirements that we set out a number of years ago to meet both sides of the thing, basically. Make sense?
Makes sense.
All right, so let's get into the demo itself. So I pulled up the client side, and we'll just work on the client a little bit. I just feel it's a good place to start. As you can see across the top, you have a bookkeeping tracker. Some would call it the pizza tracker, but it basically is giving the client a feeling of where they stand in the process for delivery, which is always the question you get is where do I stand? Where am I actually going to get my books and all that kind of good stuff? So we have that in place.
And I like how you present that. It's October and November, so there's the 2 months because one month's never finished closing while the next month's moving along the train. That's great.
That's exactly right. Exactly. And we've had a lot of application debate, product debate, whether we should put dates in here and all that kind of good stuff. But we're trying to stay with that simplicity because the more you drive it, the more the clients will want more. And yet we don't want them to overthink it, right? We just want them to know, hey, we're working, we've got stuff going on, or we're blocked because of something going on in your QBO file that, you lost your subscription, whatever it might be. Please help us, right? Get it delivered. We have boxes across the top, so we'll get in each one. These are the communications, and you can see we built one out for, Blake, you guys, we're glad to get your reporting built up and all that kind of good stuff. And these are like threads, if you may, on a text scenario where it can go back and forth on the thread. We've learned over time to not try to get the threads too big because you get lost, right, in those threads and what's happening if you start changing subjects. We can easily just reply back, all is good, thank you, go get my books, right? And we're sending that, and we'll deal with that in just a second. So those communications are out there, and you can see that we have across the top, you have Ask Clients, and you have what's with the bookkeeper. So you can go across both of those. And then you have a history of all the comms. Now, there's not going to be a lot of history here because this is a demo client, but you can have a history all the way back, right? Through history of working with us, right? Of all the different threads and comms and all that kind of good stuff. And they'd like to know what is with the bookkeeper. All is good. Thank you. Right. So there you go. Now, if I go back to the dashboard, you have Ask Client. Go ahead.
I do have a question. So Keith, like I get a message as the client.
Mm-hmm.
How do I know that I have a message?
So you get an email in your email box that says you have a message, and we're trained up our system to be able to send, if it's just a short answer and it's not part of a thread, you can reply right off your email box into our system, basically. Great. But when you get into these long threads, our message says, hey, go into system and answer it because you got to reread the whole thread, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. But you're notified that the messages are out there. Right. So Then you have Ask Client. The way we work Ask Client is pretty simple, which is we just categorize into a certain category things that we just don't know what to do with as we're doing the books. The classic example we always use is Amazon, right, guys? I mean, $17,200 went out to Amazon and it's 55 things. And, we have no idea if we put in an office supplies, we got a problem coming, that kind of good scenario. So this is an automatic scenario, right? We pull right out of QBO into our system that something's in that category, Ask Client, and it's, posted right to the client. So our senior accountants are not touching this other than, our bookkeepers and senior accountants put it into the category to ask a client. So, what is this $1,257.65? And we're going to call it, what did you do last night? Went bowling. It wouldn't have been from Amazon, by the way, but that's okay. We just go along with that one, right?
I had to buy a lot of bowling balls.
You got to buy a lot. Exactly.
The shipping was crazy on those.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, the client can get these questions. And of course, we want to reduce the number of Ask Client questions that are occurring, as time goes on. But as we get a new client and we're learning what the client is purchasing, what their vendors are, how they do things, we have to ask the questions. And of course, they got an easy answer to be able to give it back. So that's
just before you leave your comms view that you were just in.
Yeah.
Go back. So it looks like your comms has a workflow. You have like unopened ones or open communications, things that you're asking the client. And then it's very clear once it's back with the bookkeeper, it looks like there's a tab. So I can see what messages are now back on the bookkeeper's plate.
That's
correct as a client?
That's correct. Yeah. And then you have the history, which actually plays out to be very, very nice, right? The history, because you just got one place where everything is at, and you're not searching inside the email boxes and all that kind of good stuff over time. Hopefully you don't need the history because you don't have to go backwards, but it's worked for us in a big way. We good? So then we have obstructions. We run into a lot of invalid logins, passwords changed. You added a new account. Surprisingly, QBO subscription failed on the client side, whatever it might be, right? So we have built out this concept of obstructions. And you can see we have here built into the system here, we have Bank of America with an invalid login. And we give them instructions, right, how to deal with it. Invalid login, please update an Insight, and it links right to Insight to update the login, right? And then Zenoti, we have a live secondary security code, that needs to be sent to you. You're the only one that's going to get the code. We need to be able to arrange a period of 30 seconds that we can get that code, basically. And you can see we have instructions that what they need to do on that one. I'm sorry, I missed the link there. What's actually occurring on these obstructions is on a nightly basis. When the obstructions are sent, their client is also getting emails, right? We need some help. We need some help. We need some help. So every night they're getting the obstruction emails saying these are the things that are obstructing us from being able to get to work. And I know, David, I believe you saw one of our obstructions because we sent you one last night, as a test case and so forth. And that's we're going to harp to get this delivery done, and you're going to get too many emails, right? And by the way, after you get so many emails, you're going to get a damn text message too, because we're going to harp on you to actually get this stuff taken care of. And then we actually have a team. After all that's taken care of, we have a team that actually makes the phone calls and say, hey, dude or ma'am, we need you really to pay attention here. Because our job is to keep them up to date, right? And if we're obstructed, we've got to get them back up to date, basically. Then down below, we have the reports. This is a generic client, so we have an income statement, balance sheet, and transaction reports. By the way, these are marked in draft mode right now because of that Ask Client, right? So, you've got good financials, but there might not be categorized correctly because there's a couple of Ask Clients, that are out there to get categorized correctly. And the client can download the report.
That is nice that you don't force all of the questions to be answered before you can produce the draft reports.
Yeah. We learned that they want to see some numbers, right, at the end of the day, and not be in the middle of it, right? So so they download the report. It's a January through year end report, kicks off again in January, right? Kick off. They can put it down in PDF. They can download it in Excel, basically, and do whatever they need to do to forward it on. And they can play with it, do what they need to do, right? And at the same time, they can do the balance sheet or a transaction report and look at the transactions. What transactions came in from the bank feed and where did it end up getting put in place, basically, right? So, and they can go backwards as long as they want to go backwards. They can do all the way back to 2022 if they were a client with us in 2022. Look at each of the reports. And then the last thing we have here, and we'll go through a couple other points, is we do have some analytics. I don't have a lot of analytics built into this demo right now, right? But you can imagine our ability, right? When you have 100 Blake and David margarita bars, right? To be able to compare each of the bars. And that's what we're able to provide to the franchisors. So we have the capability to standardize, take a chart of accounts, map it to a standardization. If they're not following the standardization, we map it to a standardization. Then we put it into our analytics. And the franchisor can say, interesting. Our overall goal was 50% COGS, and we're at 60% COGS or whatever. And why is that? And drill down into each one of the franchisees and see who's going above or below and meeting those requirements, or who's spending not enough on marketing to be able to drive the revenues that you want to drive, and so forth and so on. It's a real advantage. And in the My Accounting world, we're starting to play with that a little bit into the industries and the lower level SIC codes to be able to do it. Because at the end of the day, getting reports is great for our clients to know how they did. What they really want to know is, how did I do in comparison to everybody else, and what can I do better? Right? Right.
I feel like that is where you have a huge opportunity, because I have not seen anybody do benchmarking at scale in a way I would feel comfortable with, because the data is so broad. It's like I don't. What am I? You have all of the source data, so you can create benchmarks that you trust.
Yes, we do. And not only do we have the source data, we have the ability to take unstandardized chart of accounts to get them to a standard for an industry or a franchise. And we have the ability to actually take that and even create it at a different level, higher or slower, to drive into specific areas. Mm-hmm. So when I'm talking to, the CEO of pick a brand, Budget Blinds, he doesn't want all this data, guys. He wants to see revenues, COGS, gross margin, net income. Tell me who's off, let's go, right? So I have that ability to go up. But when I'm talking to some of the lower level, not lower level, but franchisees, they're really trying to pinpoint my marketing spend now versus revenues 12 months from now, and how can I see others that made it actually work, and should I uptick my marketing, basically.
And what I like about your analytics, you're really, because you're closing the books, and you're building them from really good data sets. And I think about something like Intuit, where arguably 1 million QuickBooks data files are a mess. Probably. And then those analytics are not as good because people just have bad bookkeeping. Keith, we did get a question about the report. So by default, you have the income statement, balance sheet, transaction report. Can I add other reports as part of a package for my client here?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, a lot of our bigger clients that are, a 19 unit Great Clips, as an example, we've got a bunch of specialized reports that go right into this area, basically, into reporting. So you pull down. So he wants to see each of his stores by class, blah, 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 blah. And it's all good, but we do. Absolutely.
Perfect.
Yeah. Other questions? Or so the other things we have, you have the ability to manage users, add users, and all that kind of good stuff. You can see we have the famous Audrey Hepburn here, and the famous Blake Oliver and David Leary as our users on this client. They have the ability to upload documents. So this is, here's the documents we need to be able to do your books, right, from our operational side, right? And if you're providing any of the documents, you can upload them here, and it automatically, ties it to the Bank of America or Augusta or whatever. And then, our job that says, go get these documents is closed on the operational side. Again, driving efficiency, right? And the one that everybody really loves is this managed site credentials, which is, I've got, these 4 systems that I need to get, stuff from. And you can see that Bank of America, may remember there was an obstruction out there for Bank of America. We got an invalid login. Here is your ability to change your login capability. Right now, this is actually not Insight. We're actually speaking to OnePass right now, and all this data gets encrypted. We don't see it. It goes right into OnePass, and off we got the credential. And at the same time, when the client enters the new credential, and it sends a to-do to our team that has to go get this Bank of America thing, right? Check images if you may, and it says you got it to do. Go get these check images, basically.
So
Right?
you're not in the password storing business. You're basically embedding. You said OnePass? No.
Yeah, we had both LastPass and OnePass, but we're currently working mostly with OnePass.
You're embedding that in, because I've seen other apps and other companies and accounting firms where it's either the comments field or they have a spreadsheet with this in it that's not very secure. But that's a really interesting approach to do this.
And we working with the CPAs we're grabbing them out of Google Docs, guys, and that's not a place to be keeping passwords. Let's just be honest, right? So I feel like if we do nothing more for a lot of our accountant friends and partners, is getting this stuff more secure is a good thing, actually. Yeah, but you can see if we typed in the password here, we don't even get to see what it is, basically, right? It's all encrypted. So. And that's basically, they can change their passwords. We have a partner slide in here, like who we partner with and all that kind of stuff. But that's basically the client side. And again, I missed one tab, guys. I completely forgot, which is the client does have a little bit more detail here. Sorry if I'm running a little slow on the screen here, but telling you guys I need that new Mac. What will eventually come up is, here's the income, here's the cost of goods sold, here's the couple months, here's your October total, here's your average against, the other previous 5 months. Start to give them a little bit of a feel for, how are they changing. And our franchise world in particular, we're working with a lot of new franchisees, right? That's where we get a lot of our work. And frankly, our CPA world, we're starting to see the same thing, brand new firm. And they want to see that line going up, whether it's revenues going up or the percentage of COGS percent going in better positions and so forth. So we gave them this simplistic stuff as without getting too much into the details, right? Any questions on the client side?
Just in the settings, what kind of settings do the clients get access to?
Great question. Enable auto refresh of all the credentials and issue 1099. So the enable credential auto refresh is basically get the credentials put in place or ignore them, basically. And issue the 1099s is once we do free 1099 services for our clients that their books are up to date. And yes, we use Track 1099. So Insight ties directly to 1099 and Insight ties to QBO. So the data just flows right through. They give us the okay to actually do them, and they have to click that to say, yes, go ahead and issue those things through 1099s, basically. Right?
Makes sense.
Yeah. Good. Okay.
Good.
So I'm going to move over to what I call the more not as user-friendly side, because there's just so much activity going in here, right? This is the operational side. And I jumped right to a client page. So this is the inverse, Dreaming Big client, right? And I need to refresh this just so everybody knows. You can see we got an Ask Client question came over, and we'll get into that. And you can see we got a new right? We updated the Bank of America, and we got Blake and David. I'm glad you're able to, we've got a response to those. But let me give you the bigger picture on what all this client side does, which is we have the bookkeeper tracker for our team as well. Do they utilize it? No, but does it help them know what a client sees? Yes, it does. We have this big red box here, and that big red box basically is all the information that you want to store about a client and put in front of your bookkeepers or your senior accountants or your management team. It has information like, hey, what's going on? How many Ask Clients are out there? How many are with the client? How many are with us? We have when's the last time the clients logged in to do anything, right, inside these things. We have reporting on that says if the client hasn't logged in a while, might be heading to a problem, right? If that makes any sense. These last doc dates and work dates are basically, you guys know that statements come available at different times in the months when you want to get to this stuff. That last doc date is the last doc for that client's documents, what date it is, and the work date is, hey, what day do we want to work this client? What day do we want to do the books, basically. Unmapped accounts is basically the mapping that we talked about on analytics, and of course we didn't map them here. And if they have an early delivery requirement, the 10th, the 15th, whatever, you manage that as well. You can see over here, you got the whole team and who's doing what, so the team members can know. You have the phase that the client is in. MRC is monthly recurring, but you can have onboarding. You can have just analytics, which we do for some. You can have catch and clean up, and it matters what's kicking off. And then you can have actions is just, hey, I want to edit the client, right? Or I want to build new jobs for new things that have to occur for the client. It's kind of that administration and all that kind of good stuff. And then you have the dates of the reports. When is the draft ready and when is it ready, right? All those ask clients are cleared. And then we can impersonate the client. Our senior accountants do not get logins to the client level, but they can impersonate it to look and see what the client is actually seeing. They just can't send a comm. They can't, change the credentials. These buttons here, QBO and Box, I may have told you this in the past, Blake, are just was one of the first things we actually installed with technology. When we first looked at the workflow and what our senior accountants were doing, they were going in and out of QBO to try to get to the next client and the next client and the next client. And they were losing like an hour a day just navigating within QBO to the different GLs. So if we push that button, it hyperlinks right into that QBO client for that client, right? And it literally saved us like 30 minutes to an hour for that movement. And the same is true for Box, which is where we store all of our documents. But we also have Google Drive and some other ones, but we tend to use Box. And then these are those obstructions, right, that we talked about. And we can add obstructions and so forth and so on. The Bank of America and its noting. So it is everything that a person would need to know, right, to be able to crank through getting the books out the door is sitting in this box. Now these boxes down here get a little detailed. We have the comms, and you can see that the comm came across that we changed the invalid credential, and I apologize about the invalid there. That's just my screen being put in place, and we got the answer to your question, right? So you can see all is good, thank you, go get them, right? So they can close that comm or they can send a funny one back and all that kind of good stuff. So that's the comms, and of course they get to see as well. They get to send new comms. They get to send, see what's with the client. They get to see the history, and they could just type in new comms. And if I didn't want, it would open up into a nice email box and all that kind of good stuff. Then we have the jobs list, and right now we have a hard reconcile and a soft reconcile open on the jobs list. Basically, in our process is document collection, soft reconcile, hard reconciles, review and deliver. And we'll go into one of those in just a second. I want to come back around to that for some fun stuff. We have client service procedures. Let's just get rid of the jobs list. And you have everything that we want to document about a client, right? That helps our, proverbial, you get hit by the bus, senior accountant or bookkeeper. And we broke it down into complete, important client items or soft reconciles all the way over liability sections, how to document stuff, how to do their books, all that kind of good stuff. And actually, the interesting part is when you do, I've got it turned off here, but when you do a hard reconcile, this stuff pops up first so that the person doing the work and the bookkeeper doing the work actually has to read this stuff, right? If that makes any sense. We have the Ask Client. And, of course, we said it's purchase from Amazon. This is a bulk order, supplies or larger asset person. You got it. And it would basically, now we have to go into the general ledger and apply that Ask Client, right? And then take it out of that quarter category, move it into where it needs to go. We have users, which we don't have to get into. We have the inverse side of the credentials, which is now Bank of America has been marked valid, right? And you can manage all that. We have what docs need to be collected. This is built on the onboarding phase, right? And it also talks about how we're getting that. Are we pulling this stuff manually? Are we pulling check images? or are we they emailing it to us, or is a third party sending it to us? Because we do get a lot of third parties sending it in. Basically, is another one. This error down here is because I don't have it tied to box, by the way. So what actually comes in below this is actually the last months of documents that are sent in box, so you can actually see them. We actually, you don't have to get too much into this, but every phone call we have the client, just like you do with the CRM, we document the phone call, and we can send those notes to the client, right? And then we got more admin, which is we tie to Salesforce for the onboarding process. Our sales team is in Salesforce, and we automatically build the client into Insight through the Salesforce. And then we have an activity log, which is everything that actually is going on for the client, basically. So it's tracking each of the tasks, each of the to-dos. It's tracking, Keith logged in, Keith sent this, right? The bookkeeper did this, and so forth. So we can always see what's actually transpiring by client. But the fun stuff is we'll go to here. We'll go to the job list. We'll go into a hard reconcile, right? And now we moved from the client level down into the job level, right? And so you actually have tasks and to-dos. If you wanted to, you can play with the estimated time of the actual and the remaining. It's all built into the system if it's needed to be done, right? So, like I said, we have at the job level, we have the job, we have task, we have to do, and you basically, when you're working the job, you actually have to just, complete each of the tasks and so forth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this from in progress to completed. So we just completed that hard reconcile, and you're going to see that it's all done, basically. So we'll go back out to it told me that I was tracking too much time, by the way, guys, because there's a point where it says, do you want to really track your time on the system? And you can see that a new job popped up, right? So a review and deliver job popped up. In our processes, we have bookkeepers do the hard reconciles and the senior accountants do the review and delivers. So this just told the senior accountant that they have it to do the review and deliver. Our jobs can pop up based on dependencies forward. The hard rec to review deliver. It can pop up based on a calendar date. It can pop up weekly. It can pop up whatever, right? Biweekly, whatever it needs to do. In this scenario, we wanted the review and deliver job to pop up when the hard rec was done. It basically is the signal. So now we're going to go in and do a financial review. Or any questions so far, guys? Are we good?
This all looks great.
Yeah, okay. So we're going to go do a review. And this is a little funky how we're doing it for the demonstration purposes because it's actually done in multiple steps, but we'll get it. Boy, I apologize. So this is a bookkeeper review, and the bookkeeper is solving these questions and answering and checking the marks and giving any notes that they need to do to the senior accountant. We can create new tasks by client. The senior accountant or our operations team could actually add more to-dos to say, check this, check that based on the client. So it's, the basic checklist, right? When you want to send something to the client. This one's done by the bookkeeper. We go to the next, and you can see now we're on a senior accountant task to-do list, right? So I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to go ahead and check all these.
And this is basically your quality control before
you got it.
Data goes to the client.
Exactly, before anything goes to the client. And I'm just going to say it's all good. And again, this is all editable and changeable and all that kind of good stuff, right, by each of the clients. But there's templates built out so that you have the checklists. Whereas revenue, cost of goods sold is not good, right? Let's do the too much spend on bowling balls, right? And I'm going to check this to say, do I want to send that note to the client? So in that case, I'm going to check it and say, yeah, I'm going to send that note. You got to pay attention to how much money you're spending on the bowling balls. This is where you can create new tasks, and you can write notes to each other in these comments between the bookkeeper and the senior accountant. And then you can add on, like get some more coffee, right? Some more notes. But I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to start an AI chat to be able to get down to real stuff. And our AI chat is built in that we can do month over month, or we can do current month over the last 3 months. We're going to do month over month, and it's going to do a comparison between those two. We're adding year over year in about 3 weeks, and it'll be done. You can compare yourself against franchises or against industry standard SIC codes, basically. And we're just doing an internal review here, right? And you can compare the main categories: revenues, cost of goods, general expenses. You can compare everything, or you can compare transactions, which we're still working on a little bit to get the user design interface. But this one, we're going to do month over month, internal, all categories, and we're going to run analysis. And you're going to see it run for a couple minutes. Guys, I'll just be honest. It's now sending all of our data for this month and last month over into our assistant, GPT assistant that we own, or that we don't own, but you know what I mean, that we've built up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to come back with a tuned message, and that will automatically get put into the final delivery for the client. Now, what it's actually doing is it sends all the data, and I'll be able to show this to you in a minute here. It takes about 2 minutes right now, and we think we're going to get it down to 1 over the course of the next couple months. But it's sending all of the data, and then we have a series of questions that we've worked with the assistant, to actually parse this data and build up what we want to build up. And I'll be able to show you the questions that we're actually sending, and again, it's sending back the next question and getting more data and more data when this comes through. Usually what we do, guys, I mean, just so you know, we usually the senior accountants kick off this AI tool and then go back up and work on all that data, basically, right? So they got it working. Now, the problem being that if they found an issue, we have to resync, right, our data in the QBO, but there's a resync capability built in, basically.
And essentially what this is doing, I'm imagining if you have 3,000 clients, you can't have one-on-one advisory meetings. But this allows you to provide advisory services in scale.
Yeah, and we're not really tipping the line just yet to real advisory, Dave. We're giving data capabilities right now. So you can see it came back, and we'll get into that advisory just in a second. So you can see here's all the data we sent over to QBO, right? And oh, by the way, just as a small little thing, we have the ability to take that data and put it into a spreadsheet in case we need to do some analysis. We asked it to build out the main categories. So you can see the main categories, October and November, and the percentage change. We then said, now compare the 2-month statements provided, for all expenses, right? So now we got all the expenses back, sorted. No, it's not sorted, all expenses back. Now we want them to sort the monthly expense category. And I think if you guys are using ChatGPT, you realize you can't ask all those questions at once. You got to build it, right? And that's what we're doing, is we're building. And you got the expense categories now by what's gone up the most and what's gone down the most, right? And now we ask it, write a descriptive analysis under each table. So we got the main categories, we get the analysis in text, we get the monthly comparison table, and we get the analysis in text, basically. Right? So whatever that took, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, you couldn't even build the tables and, clearly in that time frame, basically.
Yeah.
Now, David, this is just how did I do against myself? And I'm giving you that data. If you did the franchise one, right, where you're comparing myself against, the average of another 50 franchises, now I'm really getting into some, good advisory services, but I'm not really telling them that they're not spending much on marketing. We're telling them your average is not as much in marketing. Go spend more, right? There's a slight difference if that makes any sense. And part of the reason we're not doing that, going to the next level, is we're not charging at that level right now. That's a big charge, right, to get that advisory services versus what we do. But we are leaking into it. There's no question we're leaking into it, right, guys? And we're going to get there over time. And it's going to put some price pressure on, basically. So now we have the email. David, did I answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, 'cause to some extent, you're not just, when I think about advisory, you're putting color around
Yes.
this data. And that's essentially what you're doing, but you're doing
Yeah.
it at scale.
Yes. And I'm including the review response, and I included the notes from the client into it, and submit and send email. Done. And the email, oh, I didn't say who I'm sending it to. Sorry, guys. So, David and me and Blake are all going to get this email. It's submitted and it's sent, basically. At least I think it is. Yeah.
Says, please check email is ready.
I just lost something.
There must be some other, there it is.
Right here. Sorry, I didn't go down. And by the way,
because you never want to premature send that email.
It's right. The other thing is, remember those dates? Now we move the dates, basically. So we actually say the new date is November 31st. And the new date for this, because the S client in there, well, let's just pretend the S client got fixed, is 30th, right? And the email is ready, submit and send, and it's off and going. Now, what happened on the reports, by the way, because we moved those dates, those reports automatically got generated or on the client side now. Didn't have to pull reports, didn't have to do anything. It's automatically on the client side, right? Makes sense? And you guys got emails.
Yeah,
right?
I'm looking for my email right now.
Probably went into junk because you probably labeled us junk, right? So that's just efficient, right? I mean, it's just fast, it's efficient. You're not pulling down reports, you're not formatting reports, you're not writing, you're not doing it. And it's just going to continue to grow and grow and grow on the details. And it's a great question on advisory services, I believe. I think we're going to continue to leak into it. But as we link into it, what we'll have to do is figure out what the price point is for some of this type of stuff. Now, my accounting side are getting all that as part of our price point, to be honest with you, because they're the ones talking to the clients and giving them the advice and so forth. There's one other piece of the puzzle here, right? We don't need to get into all the admin. I've got a generic, everybody always asks the question, well, how do people know what they're doing, right? So we have a dashboard. And again, this is a demo system, so there's just not a lot on this dashboard right now. But this dashboard basically says, here's what's going on across the client base that you have purview to see. Here is your client, Ms. Senior Accountant, and how many GLs you have and where they stand for all that type of stuff. Here's your work. So you've got an open comm. If you had any jobs out there, you'd have the number of jobs that you have to work and all that kind of good stuff. So our people walk in on a daily basis, our individuals, and literally they click into these boxes and they just do their work. It's just right there, scheduled for them, basically. And off they run. So we're trying to make them, so this one has 64 jobs assigned to them, and they have to work those jobs basically. So they don't have to worry about what am I prioritizing, what am I doing today. It's always sitting right in front of their face, basically. Makes sense?
And I like the presentation like this of just high level, the number of tasks or the number of the work I need for each of these boxes instead of just a list of my task. And then it's small manageable chunks. Make this box be a 0, make this box be a 0.
Exactly.
And keep knocking them out.
Exactly. Because you get overwhelmed. I mean, you do. I mean, you got, so many clients you're working with. What's my priority today? Bouncing back and forth, right? Got phone calls and so forth and so on, right? Going on. And I think that does get overwhelming, right? So that's our system. Any questions?
I can't even think of anything. I was going to ask about the AI stuff, but you showed it.
You like it?
That's really neat. That's really nifty. I mean, it's like, and it seems like you've built it in a way that is, it can be, you can apply it to so many different things.
Yes.
It is extendable. It's not fixed as to one thing you can do with it.
Yeah. And I agree. And it's a question of, listening to our clients. What do they really need, right? At all points in time. But if you go back to that scale play, and you got 100,000 clients out there, pick your number. I don't care, right? Whether it's 50, 100, go back to the scale play. And if you've got that stuff mapped and you've got it all standardized, we will absolutely dominate through the use of data, right? Absolutely dominate. Because we just not only get the books done, we'll be providing that advisory services at some rate as well. And I think that's what our people see, right? Basically.
So if I
Any
want to get this
questions?
from, yeah, if I want to get this from my firm, what's the process for that, or how much? Actually, this is a better question. How is this priced for my firm?
Yeah, so there's two offerings for a firm, the way we look at it, right? The first is we actually do the bookkeeping for you and you're client facing. And that's so we're the back office, right? And we're using our tools and you've got our systems, you can check in on us, you do all that. That's $150 a month, guys. That's what it is. Now, of course, we're going to look at those clients and say, hey, wait a second, this is ExxonMobil. We can't do ExxonMobil for $150 a month. But most of the small businesses that we're getting, we're going to be able to do it at $150. By the way, there's your efficiency. You can feel that point at the $150 rate, right? The other way we can sell this is just the application. And the application is on the market for $35 per client. But we have to talk because there are some things set that you want to build that we can easily maintain, like statuses, invalid logins versus secondary security, but you have to get your processes down to use a tool correctly, right? And we openly tell everybody, don't come to us and try to use the tool for one client because we can onboard you. It's just not going to be worth it to you or us for one client. Get into the 50, 75 clients and this thing will crank for you because this is built for, you guys know it, it's built for scale. Now, one of our roadmaps for 2025, by the way, is to see if we can build an application to just utilize the integrations we have with QBO and Xero and the review process and the client process, right? So if they can get without all the workflow and we can figure out a way to keep the statuses so the emails are chasing the client correctly and just make it very simple, but they get that review and they get that the analytics and they get a client portal, that could be pretty magical for a lot of CPA firms as well, right? And it's pretty doable. It's just a question of user interface simplicity, basically, in our opinion.
Which is always a lot harder than people think.
Yes, it is. It is.
Yeah, you have so much functionality in this portal.
Right.
I have not seen anything like this before. Thank you, Keith, for showing this to us.
Yeah, it got us where we needed to be, right? And it is big. It is big. We admit.
So check out that. I think I've learned a lot. I hope our viewers have as well. David, what is this URL?
That is myaccounting.com. That's for the CPAs to get a hold of us.
Got it. MYACCNTING.com.
So
check it out.
Yep.
Get in touch with Keith. And stay tuned for a message about how to earn CPE for joining us today. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you around on another Earmark Expo.
Today's event has ended. To earn CPE, go to earmark.app or scan the QR code on the screen. Then log in or create your free account. Search for the course by tapping on the magnifying glass icon on the home screen and then entering the name of this event. It takes a few days to make the course, so if you're attending this event live, keep an eye out for an email letting you know when the course is available. Pass the quiz to earn your CPE, then tap the button to email yourself a certificate. Stay tuned for more events from Earmark. Thanks for joining us, and we hope to see you again soon.